what's happening around the world
and what's happening here at home. A very good evening. You're watching Primetime News on TV1. For the Newsfirst team, I'm Rochelle Tumodara.
and I'm Sandro Ferdinando. Let's take a look at your headlines for tonight.
Newsfirst headlines. Main sponsor.
Valuable Finance was awarded the Best Finance Company for the third consecutive year.
US Ambassador visits Election Commission following Range Bandara's proposal for a 2-year poll postponement. President and Prime Minister officially confirm presidential election will go ahead. Internal opposition surfaces against Range Bandara's statement.
මොහු විසින් මේ කරපු ප්‍රකාශය පිළිබඳව සමස්ත සමාජයෙන්ම සමාව ඉල්ලලා මොහු මහලේකම් ධූරයෙන් ඉල්ලා අස්විය යුතුයි.
Is the SJB ready for the Economic Council debate? Anura sends final notice to Sajid.
කෙලින්ම කියන්න සජිත් ප්‍රේමදාසට බැරි නම් බෑ හානම් හා නිකන් වංගු ගහන්න නැතුව.
Is Dilit the presidential candidate of the new alliance?
එතුමා විතරක් නෙවෙයි බොහෝ අය ඉන්නවා ජනාධිපතිවරණයට ඉදිරිපත් වෙන්න කැමති.
University lecturer arrested for media statement on ISIS suspects. MP Sarath Veerasekara advocates for forceful rehabilitation of extremists.
මේ rehabilitation පුනරුත්ථාපනය කරන එක බලෙන් හෝ කළ යුතුයි.
Cardinal slams authorities of neglecting justice for Easter tax.
Newsfirst headlines. Main sponsor.
Valuable Finance was awarded the Best Finance Company for the third consecutive year.
Now on to your top story for tonight. The President and the Prime Minister have provided assurances that the presidential election will be conducted as planned.
This guarantee was given in response to a recent statement by UNP Secretary General Palita Range Bandara, who suggested that the elections should be postponed for 2 years through a parliamentary resolution with the possibility of a referendum if deemed necessary.
President Ranil Wickremesinghe, speaking at the What's New Young Legal Professionals Forum, commented on the elections and said the presidential election will go ahead. Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena commented on the presidential election in Colombo.
The government's position has been clearly stated. The Election Commission has confirmed that the presidential election will be conducted in accordance with the Constitution, scheduled between September and October. It is important to remind the public that in a democratic government, there is no provision for making sudden, undiscussed and baseless announcements that would lead to issues.
24 hours earlier, UNP General Secretary Palita Range Bandara suggested that the elections should be postponed for 2 years through a parliamentary resolution with the possibility of a referendum if deemed necessary.
The president's term should be extended by another 2 years, let alone 5. Similarly, we propose that the parliamentary term be extended by an additional 2 years, postponing parliamentary elections. We firmly believe that all MPs must come together for this. In addition, if further measures are required, we advocate for a practical and democratic approach, passing the proposal in Parliament and confirming it through a referendum.
Range Bandara's statement faced severe criticism from various political parties and organizations. Several hours after the statement, Julie Chung, the US ambassador to Sri Lanka, met with RMAL Ratnayaka, the chairman of the Election Commission. The Election Commission said that the meeting centered around the upcoming elections in the country and issues related to the electoral process. The chairman of the Election Commission had assured the US ambassador that the upcoming elections would adhere to the powers vested with the commission by the Constitution. Posting on X, Ambassador Chung said she appreciated the meeting with the Election Commission to hear about plans for elections and upholding a transparent process. She added that as Sri Lanka, the US and many countries face elections this year, they exchanged views on the importance of voting in free and fair elections elections as a pillar of democratic governance. The local Daily Mirror published a report with the heading, "President Asserts No Poll Postponement." It added that President Wickremesinghe began receiving calls from several parliamentarians, including the opposition, to seek more clarity on the statement by Rangi Bandara, with the president finally having to distance himself from it, stating that there was no such move to delay the polls. Furthermore, factions close to the president have also criticized Rangi Bandara's proposal.
මේක ඇත්තටම ප්‍රජාතන්ත්‍රවාදී විරෝධී ප්‍රකාශයක් විදියට අපි දකිනවා.
We see this as a deeply anti-democratic statement. If the United National Party considers itself a democratic party, its political conduct and approach to elections should reflect that. A General Secretary should not express personal opinions irresponsibly. Such behavior has caused unnecessary social unrest. These thoughtless statements, which incite conflict, leave us questioning their true intent. We apologize for this statement. The individual responsible should resign from the position of General Secretary.
මොහු මහලේකම් ධූරයෙන් ඉල්ලා අස්විය යුතුයි.
මැතිවරණයක් නැතුව තව අවුරුදු දෙක තුනක් යන්න කියන අදහස.
The notion that elections might be postponed for another 2 or 3 years is being suggested by various groups, including the business community. While different groups have met with the president to discuss this idea, no official decision has been made. Additionally, the president does not support this idea. The presidential poll will go ahead and there will be no change.
මේ අවුරුද්දේ ජනාධිපතිවරණය තියෙන එක ස්ථිරයි, ඒක වෙනස් වෙන්නේ නැහැ.
Can the General Secretary make a serious statement without the party leader's knowledge? This is the stance of the National People's Power.
We believe that this proposal is not solely Rangi Bandara's idea. It is very clear that the United National Party Secretary made this statement based on Ranil Wickremesinghe's knowledge, understanding and advice. Did Ranil make him say this without a knowledge of the Constitution? Let them reveal the truth and see how society will react. These kinds of stories are being spread by them to confuse public's opinion and clouding the issue.
The former chairman of the National Election Commission, Mahinda Deshapriya, said that the proposal to delay the election is a ridiculous idea.
This proposal to elect public representatives through a referendum is completely illegal, unconstitutional and anti-democratic. In no case should the election process be bypassed. This practice exists only in some dictatorial regimes. Sri Lanka must uphold its democratic principles. Extending the term of office without holding elections, be it through constitutional amendments or referendums, is unacceptable. These proposed bills are entirely useless and should be discarded immediately. There is no need to revisit this ridiculous idea. Everyone is against this. It is ridiculous.
හැම කෙනාම ඒකට විරුද්ධයි. මේක ඊටාම මෝඩ අදහසක්.
Professor G.L. Pieris from the Freedom People's Congress said that Rangi Bandara's proposal to delay the election is an acceptance of defeat even before the elections.
It is very clear that this statement made through the General Secretary was intended to gauge public reaction. What was the response? A tsunami. It is clear now that this is impossible. The government knows they will lose and their solution seems simple. Don't hold them. This isn't just about the upcoming elections. They have already accepted defeat.
MP Rauf Hakim said they will not support the proposal to delay the elections.
This is an anti-people act, an anti-democratic act. None of us can be fooled by that. We will not support that. It is clear that the president's statement is a turn back after their plans seem to have failed.
The citizens of the People's Struggle Organization held a protest opposite the UNP headquarters opposing Rangi Bandara's statement. They demanded for the election to be held on time according to the Constitution.
ජනතාව බලාගෙන ඉන්නවා මේ මැතිවරණය එනකම්. බණ්ඩාරට ආණ්ඩුක ව්‍යවස්ථාව පිළිබඳව පැහැදිලි කරන්නයි ඇවිල්ලා තියෙන්නේ. මොකද ඌ ආණ්ඩුක ව්‍යවස්ථාව උල්ලංඝනය කරන්න කටයුතු කරනවා නම් පුරවැසිය විදියට අපිට අයිතියක් තියෙනවා මේ ආණ්ඩුක ව්‍යවස්ථාව සුරකින්න. මෙන්න බයිබලය. මේක තමයි අපි සමාජවාදී ජනරතේ ආණ්ඩුක ව්‍යවස්ථාව. මේ ව්‍යවස්ථාව දන්නේ නැද්ද රංග බණ්ඩාර අතගාල් නැද්ද? මුත්තල මේ ප්‍රසිද්ධ බොක්කුඩ දිනක කවුරුත් දන්නවා. ඒ නිසා මේ කරපු බූරු ප්‍රකාශය වහම ඔහු ඉල්ලාස් කරගන්න ඕනේ. මේකේ රහ වැටිලා රංග බණ්ඩාරලා මේක දෙන්න කැමති නෑ. අවුරුද්දයකට ගෙනියන්න හදන්නේ ඒකයි. කරුණාකරලා පොලිසිය මහතුරු මේක තේරුම් ගන්න. ප්‍රජාතන්ත්‍රවාදයේ තිබ්බොත් තමයි ඔබතුමාලට ඔය නිලඳුන් අදව රාජකාරී කරන්න පුළුවන්. ඒකින්ද පාලිත රංග බණ්ඩාර මහත්තයා පරක්කු කරන්න එපා මේ ප්‍රශ්නේ. රටේ ජනතාව බලන් ඉන්නවා. ඔයා මොකද මේකට උත්තරය කියලා.
The group dispersed as they could not secure a meeting with anyone.
The unlikely debate.
The debate between Anura and Sajid has become a significant topic in politics, especially after the proposal to postpone the elections for 2 years has now since been withdrawn. Today, both parties continue to express their views on the matter.
Anura's party has proposed specific dates for a leaders' debate, while Sajid's party has reserved dates for an economic council debate.
Today marks the third day of the 5 days proposed for Economic Committee debate. Thus far, we await a definite response from the JVP with 2 more days remaining. However, their Economic Committee has disseminated divergent statements across different platforms. Had they engaged us in direct face-to-face dialogue, clarity would prevail, enabling the populace to determine the truth. He has allocated 5 days for the debate. Among these, June 6th has been proposed as a potential date by myself. The ball is now in his court to decide whether to participate. It is imperative that this debate occurs at the leadership level. The controversy surrounding this discussion stems from the clash between leaders. Therefore, he should say whether he can or can't engage in the debate.
Meanwhile, the latest political alliance in town is also under much scrutiny.
A group including Dilith Javira's Maubima Janata Party, Vimal, Gammapila, Gemindu and Vasu are now part of the alliance.
Who will be the presidential candidate of this new alliance named the Sarvachana Balaya?
This month, we committed to forming a new alliance to serve as a shelter for 6.9 million. As promised, this new alliance was established on the 27th. When the presidential election is announced, we will nominate the most qualified candidate from our alliance to run for president.
අපි ජනාධිපතිවරණ ඉදිරිපත් කරනවා. අපි ජනාධිපති අපේක්ෂකයෙක් තීරණය කළා නැහැ.
We haven't decided on a presidential candidate yet. The decision will be made after the official announcement of the presidential election. Until yesterday, the Maubima Janata Party supported a particular candidate. However, he is now part of the Sarvachana Balaya and is pursuing a collective political approach. There are many other potential candidates as well. We will select the best candidate when we formally announce our participation in the presidential election.
ඉදිරිපත් කරාම අපි තෝරා ගැනීමක් කරනවා.
It is an internal thing within the party. We cannot answer that. Politics is like that. It's like a bus. New people get on, old people get off. The bus keeps moving.
They claim it is a national movement. It includes Dilith Jayavira, Gammanpila, Veeravansa, Channa Jayasumana, while Gotabaya Rajapaksa is the only person missing from it. Should Gotabaya Rajapaksa and Dr. Padiniya align, it would echo past dynamics. There's no novelty in that. How can you claim it is new? Forming something does not make it fresh and new. They were the architects behind the snake and Dhammika tonic. Old faces don't breathe new life into endeavours.
Meanwhile, several political parties and civil organizations collaboratively launched a joint program in Colombo. This initiative is referred to as Ekarupi Samuhaya. The group is spearheaded by President's Counsel Maitri Gunaratne, the leader of the United National Freedom Front.
These grassroots organizations are born from noble intentions. That is the desire to enact positive change within our nation. What are these organizations striving for? We craft policy statements, entrusting incoming administrations with their implementation. Regrettably, these promises often languish in neglect. Thus, we formed this platform which is open to all. I am one who sent one of the 225 MPs packing. The remaining 225 should follow suit when the time comes. If the culmination of our efforts leads to Ranil Wickremesinghe assuming presidency, then our struggle has faltered. This reality must be acknowledged. We are still grappling with bankruptcy, and it has been 2 years since Ranil became the president. My proposal to the IMF is to grant us an additional 4 years, allowing us to progress without the burden of debt repayment. Ranil is incapable now.
Fort Magistrate Kosala Senadira today ordered that the case against actress Damitha Beratna and her husband be called up on the 16th of October in order to obtain the advice of the Attorney General. The actress and her spouse were arrested and remanded related to a substantial fraud amounting to nearly 3 million rupees by promising employment opportunities in Korea.
Appearing for Damitha Beratna today, attorney Ajit Patirana sought a relaxation of her bail terms. However, the Fort Magistrate ordered a formal request with supporting documentation in this regard.
කවදාවත් අයින් වුණෙත් නැහැ අයින් වෙන්නෙත් නැහැ කොතනකදීවත් මං හිටගත්ත මතය සජිත් ප්‍රේමදාස මැතිතුමා වෙනුවෙන් වැඩ කරන එක මම නවත්තන්නේ නැහැ ලක්කම හැංගුණා පිස්සුද ලක්කම
There's no way that Lak Amma would hide. Neither have I ever hidden, nor will I ever hide. Dear President, I hope you're not expecting to remain in this seat forever. Please hand over this country to the people who are capable of ruling it. I invite you also to join with such people. It would be better for you to join with Sajid Premadasa, as both of you have similar principles.
Opposition leader Sajid Premadasa revealed plans for women empowerment program under SJP government.
It's time to move beyond talk and take action, ushering in an era of putting our words into practice. A program will be established for the production of sanitary facilities and equipment. This initiative will address menstrual poverty in the country while simultaneously fostering the self-employment industry and empowering women. The establishment of new factories will create additional employment opportunities.
මේ හැම දෙයකදීම සාර්ව ලෙසස් ශුද්‍ර ලෙසක් කටයුතු කරන්නට බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා.
News First with the people.
The Terrorist Investigation Division has arrested a lecturer attached to the General Sir John Kuthalawala Defence University for making false statements to the media regarding the ISIS members arrested in India. The individual in question was identified as Dr. Punsara Amarasinghe.
Sri Lanka police said that the lecturer recently told media that the Easter Sunday Attacks Commission report recommends that the men suspected of being ISIS members and arrested in India be directed to rehabilitation. Dr. Punsara Amarasinghe is an academic staff member of the Faculty of Law at the Kothalawala Defence University. DIG Nihal Thaldua said that when the CID summoned Dr. Punsara Amarasinghe for questioning, he had said that he was unaware of the relevant details and was arrested. Dr. Punsara Amarasinghe was released on a personal bail of 1 million rupees after he was produced to the Fort Magistrates Court. In a related development, the CID arrested 2 people in Bangadeniya Chilau for their alleged links with ISIS members. Sri Lankan security forces suspect that an individual by the name of Osman Gerard acted as a handler of the 4 Sri Lankan men who were arrested in India for suspected links with ISIS. Sri Lanka police recently announced a cash award of 2 million rupees for any credible information on the whereabouts of the wanted suspect. According to detectives, the 2 men arrested in Chilau are the younger siblings of Osman Gerard. The Gujarat Anti-Terrorism Squad thwarted a potential terror attack with the arrest of 4 Sri Lankan nationals at the Ahmedabad airport on the 20th of May. Indian media reported that the Gujarat ATS is preparing to visit Sri Lanka to further investigate the arrest of 4 ISIS terrorists in the Ahmedabad airport.
Chairman of the Sectoral Oversight Committee on National Security, Dr. Sarath Veerasekara, speaking at the Presidential Media Centre, commented on the matter.
Their statements indicated that they joined the NTJ on National Tawhid Jamaat for about 4 months since February 4th. This has posed a significant threat. It's alarming how quickly someone can be radicalized to the point of committing suicide within such a short period. Their reality is extremely dangerous. We cannot build this country by being lenient. Strict action must be taken. The Anti-Terrorism Act supports this. Rehabilitation should be enforced. As the chairman of the Sectoral Oversight Committee on National Security, I recommend that we immediately deploy a team to collaborate with the Gujarat police. We need to understand the connections spread within this country and move forward decisively.
Today, the final rites were conducted for Tilina Harshani, who tragically lost her life due to injuries sustained in the attack that targeted the Katua Petia Church on Easter Sunday in 2019. His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjith, the Archbishop of Colombo, paid his respects to the deceased and emphasized that the truth behind the Easter Sunday attacks remains undisclosed by those in positions of authority.
Tilina Harshani, a mother of 3, attended the Easter service at the Katua Petia Church on the day of the tragic Easter Sunday terror attacks. Sadly, her second child was killed in the bombing. Tilina herself was left disabled and endured immense suffering until her final moments, confined to a bed. On the 27th, she passed away, bearing the weight of her hardships. His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjith, the Archbishop of Colombo, also paid his respects last night. The Sellakanda burial grounds.
Valuable Finance was awarded the Best Finance Company for the 3rd consecutive year.
Welcome back to the news. Still in your local news, the University Grants Commission has called upon non-academic staff members currently on strike to return to work.
Professor Sampath Amarathunga has formally requested non-academic staff members to end their strike and actively participate in university operations. Professor Amarathunga emphasized that the UGC has communicated the government's stance regarding the demands raised by non-academic employees, which include issues related to salaries and allowances. The ongoing strike has implications beyond the workforce, and the chairman of the UGC said that approximately 50,000 students are awaiting the start of their academic programs. The strike, initiated by non-academic employees of state universities, continues for the 28th consecutive day. Non-academic staff staged protests as well, and one such protest took place opposite the University of Peradeniya. They marched in protest from the university premises to the Galaha Junction.
We
are not advocating for a salary increment. Rather, the focus is on the disparity in salary adjustments for non-academic employees within universities who are currently excluded from the raises enjoyed by other public sector employees. Failure to address this discrepancy risks free education. We urge the government led by Ranil Wickremesinghe to address this issue, and we will continue with this struggle until our demands are met.
Protests also took place opposite the Rajarata and Ruhuna universities. Teachers and principals are gearing up for a trade union action tomorrow and the day after, as the salary disparity issues have not been solved.
Teachers and principals will report sick tomorrow and will not report to work. This will apply to the entire country. This protest is not orchestrated by any political entity or politically affiliated group. Rather, it is a professional action undertaken by independent, non-partisan teacher principals to secure their rightful salaries.
President Ranil Wickremesinghe emphasized the need for a comprehensive plan to exploit renewable energy and explore future trends in green hydrogen in Sri Lanka. He was speaking at the Advancing Energy Transition Roundtable discussion in Colombo today.
The Advancing Energy Transition Roundtable discussion held in collaboration with the World Bank, the Ministry of Power and Energy and the Ceylon Electricity Board provided a platform for discussing the country's energy transition.
We have sufficient potential to emerge as a player in the field of renewable energy. It's also in line with Sri Lanka's commitment to achieve net zero. As I said, 2050 is too long. Let us try and see whether we can do it by 2040. And we are working on this. We have to work at what is the cost, when is it going to be attractive for private sector investments. But I note that India has already in its plans included the export of green hydrogen. Secondly is the new undersea cables that are coming on for power distribution. One is between Australia and Singapore. The other is between Singapore and India. Now Sri Lanka has the potential of connecting to the Indo-Singapore undersea cable. While looking at the users of green hydrogen, we feel that it will help us in the long run to become a logistics center for the region. But we have 3 ports, Trincomalee, which is close to the green hydrogen sources, Hambantota, in the south there is also green hydrogen available, and finally Colombo. We are also discussing with India land connectivity between South India and Sri Lanka, which means we also have the potential of reaching out into the South India. We are already discussing the power link connectivity between Sri Lanka and India. So all this falls into place. It is how do we use it. So we've got to work this out. But what we want from you all and the help is a plan for Sri Lanka to go ahead. That's where we have to call everyone in. We haven't the full expertise, I must admit. We need assistance from outside. So World Bank, ADB and others who are interested certainly would come in, because we are committed to a green economy and we want to go ahead. This in short is what Sri Lanka is planning to do.
It was less than 2 years ago, we will recall, that the sight of people lining up in every street corner for imported fossil fuels was much too common a sight in Sri Lanka. Today, Sri Lanka has set an ambitious goal of achieving self-sufficiency through renewables and becoming a regional leader in renewable energy by 2030. The goal is to source 70% of the country's electricity from renewable energy by 2030. The country also intends to achieve a carbon-neutral energy sector. However, private investment in the energy sector still faces financial risks. I humbly encourage all stakeholders, policymakers, development partners, and private sector leaders to recognize the pivotal moment we face and the need for joint action to chart a successful course forward.
One of the biggest challenges we have is the infrastructure development that is needed. We have identified renewable energy zones, particularly in the northern and the eastern parts of Sri Lanka. That is where we believe our potential is for solar, wind, onshore, offshore both, that we can utilize not just for our own domestic requirements, and as the President said, we are willing to share our energy with the regional countries as well. For that, the infrastructure needs to be developed. We had estimated earlier last year the investment that is needed for the infrastructure development in the north and east, especially combining the 9 backbone lines that needs to be integrated with the other transmission lines, is going to be somewhere around $6 billion in the next 6 years. So that is something that the government can't right now invest in terms of infrastructure. But we have proposed in the new reforms that we need to take into account these challenges and invite suitable investors even for the transmission line developments.
Sri Lanka and the UNDP held discussions on the national tax dialogue that is to take place in June.
In preparation for the National Tax Dialogue on the 12th of June, Azusa Kubota, the UNDP resident representative in Sri Lanka, exchanged views with State Minister of Finance Shehan Semasinghe on the tax perception survey findings and recommendations. She posted on X that the UNDP was looking forward to sessions on digital, SDG alignment and tax for renewable energy transition. State Minister Shehan Semasinghe also posted on X that he was looking forward to the survey findings and recommendations on public perceptions and strengthening Sri Lanka's tax reforms, and strongly recommend publishing the report for better outcomes.
The University of Colombo hosted a career expo. What next? Connecting undergraduates with over 40 companies for career exploration and networking.
The Faculty of Management and Finance at the University of Colombo today held its official career expo, What Next?, organized by the Rotaract Club of the faculty. The event provided a valuable platform for undergraduates seeking to jumpstart their careers. Over 40 companies participated in the expo, offering a wealth of opportunities for students to explore and connect with potential employers. This interaction allowed undergraduates to gain valuable insights into the job market and inquire about specific career paths within various industries.
US Ambassador Julie Chang was among those present at the opening of the exclusive art exhibition in Colombo.
The Art of Jayantha Premachandra, Celebrating Art and Legacy, a retrospective exhibition, book launch and art auction took place in Colombo. Organized by the Jayantha Premachandra Foundation, the event was graced by US Ambassador to Sri Lanka, Julie Chang, and acclaimed researcher Dr. Alan Lightman.
The first copy of this absolute work about your notoriety, ladies and gentlemen, the art of Jayantha Premachandra, a story of decades. The bidding price stands at 1,025,000 rupees. You can.
JP did not divide people according to religion or race or skin color. He celebrated the human spirit in all its forms. The world today is moving too fast for its own good. With the internet, with social media, with the smartphones, we're just moving too fast for our mental and spiritual health. You see people looking at their phones all the time. In restaurants, when they're walking in the woods, they're somewhere else. They're not where their body is. They're not paying attention to where they are. And I think that art makes us pay attention to where we are at the moment. It's so important. It's a quality that we've lost in this fast-moving world today. And art helps us be where we are with ourselves.
Levels of the Kalu, Ging and Nirvala rivers and the Athanagalu Oya, Dedru Oya and Maha Oya have reached caution level. The people living on the banks of these water bodies are requested to remain vigilant. The landslide warnings issued for multiple divisional secretariats across 8 districts remains in effect. The warning applies for the Colombo, Gaul, Gampaha, Kaluthara, Kandy, K-Gaul, Norelia and Ratnapura districts. A total of 26,524 people from 7,153 families across 20 districts have been affected by disasters linked to the adverse weather conditions. Authorities reported 8 fatalities related to the adverse weather conditions.
Bondholders have voted in favor of Zambia's debt restructuring deal. The Newsfirst Finance Report has the details.
The Newsfirst
Finance Report.
The Zambian government announced that bondholders have unanimously voted in favour of the country's proposed debt restructuring deal. Earlier this month, the government solicited consents from holders of its 3 euro bonds. Minister of Finance and National Planning, Situmbeko Musakatwane, said there was overwhelming participation and that the outturn of the voting instructions was above the required minimum threshold. He said that after nearly 4 years since the country initially defaulted on its euro bonds, the debt restructuring deal was close to completion. He also thanked the bondholders for their support. Zambia holds 3 bonds due in 2022, 2024 and 2027. The country initially issued a $750 million euro bond in 2012, followed by a second bond of $1 billion in 2014 and a third bond amounting to $1.25 billion in 2015. In June 2023, Zambia reached an agreement on a comprehensive debt treatment with its official creditors, a significant step towards restoring the country's long-term debt sustainability.
The Newsfirst Finance Report.
White House spokesman John Kirby has said the U.S. does not believe Israel has launched a full-scale invasion of Rafah in southern Gaza. He spoke hours after Israeli forces reached the center of the city and reportedly seized a strategically important hill overlooking the nearby border with Egypt.
US President Joe Biden said this month he would limit weapons supplies to Israel if it entered the population centers of Rafah, where hundreds of thousands of civilians are still believed to be sheltering. Kirby was also questioned about an Israeli strike and a resulting fire that killed at least 45 Palestinians, many of them women, children or elderly, at a camp for displaced people on Sunday. Israel has said the strike targeted and killed 2 senior Hamas officials and that it believes the fire could have been caused by an explosion at a Hamas weapons store nearby. Speaking to reporters, Kirby described images from the aftermath of the strike as heartbreaking and horrific. The US State Department said it was watching closely for the Israeli military to conduct a quick and thorough investigation into the strike. South Africans are voting in the most pivotal election since 1994. More than 27 million people are registered to cast their ballots in the polls that highlight growing political fragmentation after 30 years of democracy. A record 70 parties and 11 independents are contesting an election that will see South Africans vote for a new parliament and 9 provincial legislatures. In power since anti-apartheid icon Nelson Mandela led it to victory at the end of white minority rule, the African National Congress is seeking a 7th term in office. Though it is confident of a decisive victory, opinion polls have consistently suggested that the party will lose its parliamentary majority for the first time, forcing it to enter into a coalition with 1 or more opposition parties. The campaign has been dominated by widespread corruption in government, crushingly high levels of unemployment, especially among the youth, deteriorating public services and rampant crime. Thailand's former Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra, who returned home last year after 15 years in exile, will go on trial next month on charges of insulting the monarchy. Prayut Pacharakul, a spokesperson for Thailand's Attorney General, said 74-year-old Thaksin would be summoned to appear in court on the 18th of June to answer charges under Thailand's lèse majesté law, one of the strictest in the world. He also faces charges of violating the Computer Crime Act. Thaksin, a prominent telecommunications tycoon, was first elected Prime Minister in 2001 but removed 5 years later in a military coup amid mass protests from the urban middle class and disquiet over his policies among the pro-royalist and pro-military elite. His populist political movement continued to win elections even after Thaksin went into exile but was brought down in coups or court rulings. The latest allegations were made by the generals who seized power from Thaksin's sister, Yingluck Shinawatra, in 2014 and relate to an interview he gave to South Korean media the following year.
Up next is our sports news segment, Road to World Cup.
The ICC T20 World Cup.
The stage is set for a historic edition of the T20 World Cup as 20 teams prepare to battle it out in the United States and the West Indies. This year's tournament welcomes 3 exciting newcomers to the global stage: the United States, Canada and Uganda. The United States, co-hosting alongside the West Indies, will leverage this opportunity to make its World Cup debut. Their participation is a direct result of co-hosting duties, finally opening the door for them to compete at the highest level. Canada, on the other hand, earned its World Cup berth through sheer determination. They secured their spot with a strong showing at the USA Regional Qualifying Tournament. Meanwhile, Uganda emerged as the standout team in the African qualifiers, securing their first ever World Cup appearance.
4 days more.
And with that, we wrap up news for tonight.
Thank you for joining us. Good night.